One young man was highly motivated to walk on the Dharma path. So he paid a visit to one well-known Tibetan master to search for universal truth. That teacher is pretty well-known, a man of few words. So he asked as a novice, "Master, in order to attain complete liberation, what am I supposed to do?" The master answered, "You need to practice." And that's it. And when he left his room, he thought about how can I practice? So in the Tibetan tradition, all the rituals are very much complicated with so many mantras to memorize. So for a couple of years, he learned and masters all those complex rituals. And then he met the teacher again. He asked the same question. So I mastered all these rituals. So how can I get the complete liberation? The master said, you need to practice. When he left his room, he thought about the teacher's recommendation one more time. What is practice? Probably as the foundation of a spiritual practice, he needed to study. So he studied for a couple of years many Buddhist scriptures, and he felt he has a pretty solid foundation of the Dharma. He met the same teacher. In order to attain complete liberation, what am I supposed to do? The same answer. You need to practice. He started to become a little upset. And probably, if studying scripture is knowing the path, I have to actually walk the path. From that day, he started to practice meditation in a very devoted way. And he felt like he experienced something. After 3 years, he met the teacher and asked the same question. So he was very proud that his meditation, his samadhi went very deep. In order to attain great enlightenment, so what am I supposed to do? The master said, you need to practice. So he became very angry. So he said in a loud voice, what the H is a spiritual practice? The teacher replied, spiritual practice is working with your mind. Sometimes it is studying scripture. Sometimes it is maintaining mindfulness in your daily life. Sometimes it is practice and sitting meditation. Sometimes forgiving others, etc. I heard one funny story from one teacher. One man had a traffic accident. His car was completely wrecked. And he barely got out of his vehicle. And in order to check how badly he was hurt with his index finger, he poked each and every part of his body. He discovered each and every part of his body hurt very badly. And he went to the hospital and asked the doctor to examine his body. After a while, after careful examination, the doctor told him, when he asked, so how badly was I hurt? So the doctor replied, your body is fine, mister. You just have broken your finger. So if something is wrong in our life, let's think about that. There must be something wrong in our mind, just like that broken finger. So some people can ask, you are monastic, you may not know the real life. We have a financial problem, relational problem, etc. Think about the financial problem. Probably if that person or I am more diligent, wise, smart, or trustworthy, probably I may not have that in that financial situation. Or I have some relational problem with my boss or with my spouse, etc. But what if I break that particular habit, or I'm more considerate person, more understanding, generous person, I may not have that relational problem. Or so many problems that we think is a problem may not be problem at all. It's just our thought. Yeah? It's all within our mind. So our founding master, Soto-san, said, the study of any science has a limit to its use. But if you learn how to make the mind function, this study can be utilized without a moment interruption. Therefore, the mind practice becomes the basis for all other studies. So if people ask you, if your Christian friend asks you, what is a Buddhist study? Then you may ask, the Buddhist study is mind study. For mind study, or to work with our mind, I said yesterday, we may need some ally. The first ally, the faith, zeal, faith or belief. The second element, in Zen tradition, faith, zeal, questioning mind is called the 3 pillars of Zen. 3 pillars of Zen. The second element, the zeal. It's actually the Chinese, Buon. Sometimes translated as zeal, sometimes the passion, courage. Let's say attaining complete liberation, or deepening our meditation practice, or building your career, or whatever thing, having good relationship with your teacher or your spouse, etc. In order to achieve some goal, some people achieve that very quickly. For some people, it takes a lot of time. Some practitioners overcome some obstacle, whatever it is, wandering thoughts, drowsiness, doubt, and so on. Some people overcome the hindrances very successfully, very well. But For some practitioners, they struggle with them for a long time. What's the reason? Faith is very important. It's the foundation, but along with our faith or belief, we need a great passion, a courage, a zeal. This zeal. On our Dharma path, we encounter many obstacles, just like when we climb to the Catskill Mountain, we have to pass through some steep area. When we drive on a steep area, especially in that area, we need to step on the gas pedal. Likewise, when we are tempted or encounter some obstacle, internal or external. So what we need to overcome those obstacles is a great zeal or passion. From your teacher, you may have heard how to overcome drowsiness, how to deal with wandering thoughts when you practice meditation. If you do not have a great determination or zeal, not any technique works. If you have a great passion, zeal, courage, you naturally just come to understand the technique. The definition of zeal, our founding master goes in this way. Zeal means a mind that heroically moves forward, which is the motive force that encourages and pushes us along when we try to accomplish anything. Do you know what the literal meaning of Won, zeal? Zeal is interpretation. The literal meaning of zeal is anger. This Chinese character literally means anger. When do you think our mind is the most focused without any wandering thoughts? When you are angry. When you are very angry, you don't have any wandering, distracting thoughts. Your mind is so focused. That's why angry people are very dangerous. They can do anything with that great zeal or energy. But we need a so-called holy anger, a sacred anger. When Shakyamuni Buddha, he was born with the highest capacity. But after he left the palace in the Himalayas, which is very cold, he performed all kinds of ascetic practice, but he could not reach great enlightenment. So when he sat down under the Bodhi tree, he vowed to himself, even though my flesh got decayed, even if all my bones got broken apart, if I could not attain supreme enlightenment, I will not leave this place. On the night, he attained supreme enlightenment. So if we have that kind of motivation, great zeal, passion, I think we can be successful in every area, not just in our practice, in our career, in every domain. How could we give rise to a great zeal? I think some adversity, some suffering is a very fertile soil for a great zeal or courage to arise. Usually in a favorable situation, we don't learn that much. Let me tell this story. When you visit some Asian Buddhist monastery outside the temple, you can see many pictures like Bodhidharma practicing in the cave. One of the common pictures is Zen master Huang Biao. Huang Biao, this Chinese Zen master, is well known for the teacher of Rinzai, Zen master Rinzai. This master, Huang Biao, became Zen priest when he was young. Of course, he very diligently practiced. But there's some progress, but not that great. In old days, in many Buddhist tradition, if you become monastic, you have to sever all the karmic tie with your family, with your friend, etc. So his mother missed him so much. He does not come back to his home. His mother cried for many years, and his old mother eventually became blind. So even though she could see her son, she cannot recognize his face. And she thought about, how can I meet my son, even though she cannot see him? And she heard about which monastery he is. And in order for the monastics, in order to buy something, they have to cross the river to go to the market in the town. So at the ferry landing, she volunteered to wash all the people's feet freely, because her son, Huang Biao, had a kind of a wart, kind of some cut on his left foot, on top of his left toe, so she can recognize which person is her son. It's more than 10 years. And when Huang Biao came back from the market and let the old lady wash his feet, he realized it was his mother. And he was very surprised. His mother grew very old and became blind. He became very emotional. And his mother washed his right foot and asked for the left foot. And if she recognized her son, then probably he could not leave his mother. Somebody should take care of the old blind woman. So he stretched out the same left foot one more time in order to conceal his identity. And then he boarded the ferry and went to his monastery. One person at the ferry landing who knew Huang Biao and his mother told the mother, when ferry left the bank, that guy you just washed, that feet is your son. Then she got panicked. And in order to see his son, she jumped into the river and started to swim towards the boat. She's blind and she's drowned to death. Later, Hwang Bei heard what happened to his mother. And after he lost his dear mother, he started to practice in a very fierce way, in a very brutal way, and attained great enlightenment. Yeah. So just like the Tibetan master Milarepa, he practiced sitting meditation in the cave on top of his mother's bone. His mother, when he left, his mother and the little sister became a beggar and starved to death in order to motivate, rekindle his motivation. And they practiced in that way. In our previous retreat, our director, Reverend Kim, said a couple of times, we should be thankful, we should be grateful. It's the retreat of gratitude of all our trying, challenging situation. It's not just the world. It is really universal truth. Because in the challenging situation, we can very deeply reflect our practice, reflect our life, and at least it really empowers our mind. I sometimes think to myself, when I was in school, if there was no test, no examination, how much did I study? Probably I did not study very much. Because of the exam test, we studied very hard. So we have to be very grateful and thankful for all those exams, the tests that the universe provides. The third element, the questioning mind, sometimes a great doubt. In our Dharma path, or when we would like to achieve something, just working diligently may not be enough. Sometimes we have to use our brain. Sometimes to remove some obstacles, we need a bulldozer, but sometimes we can skillfully go around that obstacle. If something is wrong in our practice or in some work that I'm doing, we need to stop and think about what was wrong, or how can I overcome this or that hindrance, etc. We need to study and contemplate for the solution. Or, for example, if sitting meditation does not work fine, sometimes we need to switch some other forms of meditation, walking meditation. Chanting meditation is great, just reciting scripture. In Asia, just hand copying scripture is a very popular form of meditation. Or bowing, prostration meditation sometimes. One pretty well-known American anchor, journalist, he was studying what's the saddest thing in this world. Is that famine or the war or the political situation? He would like to know how the average American think of what is the saddest thing in this world. But around the Statue of Liberty, there are lots of tourists there. He asked one Tibetan monk, a very young monk, what do you think is the saddest thing in this world? Then the monk asked, who are you? So the journalist thought to himself, probably his English is very low. He's not American. All the Americans know his face. So he very gently introduced himself. I'm working with the ABC and I'd like to research on this and that subject. The monk asked the same question. Who are you? So he very slowly said his name, his occupation, etc. Then the monk said, what you just said is your name. It was your occupation. Who are you? But he could not respond to that answer in a prompt way. Then that young Tibetan monk said, it is the saddest thing that people does not know who they really are. Buddha said that ignorance is not only the saddest, it's the most dreadful thing, because it is the cause of suffering, ultimately, ignorance. So, what is Buddhism? Buddhism is the translated word, English translated word, Bulgyo in the Chinese. I like the Buddhism. Ism sounds like some kind of ideology. Bulgyo literally means the path, the teaching of awakening. I like the literal translation. The path of awakening, the teaching of enlightenment. Why enlightenment is very important? It is because when and only when we realize who we really are, we can be free from suffering and distress for good. Otherwise, it's all temporary thing. In order to get the answer, when we say enlightened person, Buddha is enlightened person. Enlightened to what? Enlightened to what? Enlightened our authentic self, ultimate reality, whatever label you use. So Buddha questioned when he was young about the mystery of life, what's the ultimate origin of human suffering, etc. Our founding master asked, he was very much curious about all the mystery of the universe. Can you imagine the 6 or 8-year-old boy did a lot of performed ascetic practice to solve that matter? So our third head Dharma master of Won Buddhism, Venerable Dosung, said, the most urgent thing in this world is to attain enlightenment. As Sensei Koshin emphasized this morning and yesterday, that is the most imperative and critical thing in our life. And faith, zeal, great doubt, these are 3 pillars of Zen. Our founding master added one more element, dedication or sincerity. Song means dedication, sincerity. On our Dharma journey, even though we have a great faith, great zeal, and great doubt, but it takes time to achieve our goal. When you read the Won Buddhism scripture, one of the world, you encounter very often is ore, which literally means for a long time, or 계속해서, which means if you continue to do, if you continue to practice. There's no shortcut. If you need to continue to do that, whether it's meditation or restoring relationship, whatever area it is. We know Thomas Edison is a very smart person, and we all know in order to make the electric bulb successful, he failed hundreds of times. I think if he could not make it, he tried 1,000 times until he made it successful. He continued to do that. One day, I read one article, the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, the fourth movement, the Ode to Joy. When Beethoven was young, when he was in his mid-20s, when he read the German poet, the Schiller's poem, he was very much impressed. I'd like to compose based on this poem. It's a ninth poem. For his whole life, he composed that. He corrected it again and again, even though he's a music prodigy. So our founding master said, those who have made a great vow to the great way should not hope to accomplish it quickly. With the quick steps, one cannot walk a long distance. With an impatient mind, one cannot achieve the great way. That tall tree is the result of a small shoot, growing for many years without decaying. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the result of accumulating merits over a long period of time without going back on their original vow. When we walk on a Dharma path, it's very natural that we encounter lots of temptations and obstacles. But in order to overcome that successfully, let's reflect. Do I really have a great faith? I can do that kind of a spirit, or great zeal, or questioning mind, or dedication. Doing it over and over again. One of the ministers is 5 years senior to me. When he was a prime minister, he was not interested in sitting meditation, and he thought to himself, he's not cut for priesthood. He has many inner conflict, and made a lot of mistakes. One day he asked to our third head Dharma master, he very candidly said, he's not a very spiritual person, he's too much attracted to all kinds of secular things. Then Venerable Daesan replied, if a person falls down 10 times and he get up 11 times, he will become successful. If a person falls down once and could not get up, he will fail. Now he's a great teacher. Yeah. So last, when you go to the Buddhist monastery where the main temple, where the Shakyamuni Buddha image is enshrined, Daeung-jeon. Jeon means hall. Daeung. Do you know what Daeung means? Daeung literally means great hero. Great hero. In the sense, he conquered his mind. Hero, somebody that conquer his enemy. What is the enemy? It can be greed, anger, delusion, or whatever. He conquered his mind. So I sincerely hope and pray that inside these halls we see lots of bodhisattva images. Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva, etc. So someday, I hope, each and all the person in this hall could be enshrined in this holy space. I really mean it. Okay, thank you so much.